Now live on YouTube for everybody there. And if I can just sort out my other stuff, we'll be get this live. Where did Zoom go? Okay, so we should just be sharing my screen at the moment. Let's get this underway.
Looks good.
Yeah, what a handsome devil that is. So welcome everybody, both on YouTube and live in Zoom at the moment, or possibly on a recording. So this is our September London Excel Meetup event, online version, where something a little bit different today. We have David Brown joining us, who you'll hear from in a moment, and it's about doing an Excel challenge, and then to test our Excel skills a bit, and then more importantly, we'll have a bit of a walkthrough as to how different ways I guess this challenge can be solved. Just going through our usual talk here, just to let people know about how things are done here and any upcoming events we've got, and then we'll get underway with the exciting stuff. So a few normal things to know. First of all, this is live on Zoom and it is recorded on YouTube as well. So we're live on YouTube and the recording is available. On the event page that you probably all went to join here today, there is both links, both Zoom and YouTube on there. And the link you see on the event page is the exact same link for the replay. So for anybody who need to replay at any point, a recording of this, that is available on the event page already. But there will be a follow-up email to anyone who's RSVP'd to this event, where you'll also get a link to the replay and anything else that I guess may come up during the session. If any links or material shared or any information, we try and put that into the follow-up email, if we can, as long as we capture that link and remember it. As far as upcoming London Excel Meetup events go, we actually have one every single month up to February. But a few of the details are missing at the moment, as I try and liaise with instructors to get these details and stuff to confirm it. But online, we do have speakers for every event up to February now. So rest assured we have a schedule. But so far, the only public ones are the one in person next month, where we have Ben at the London Microsoft Reactor, which is over in Paddington in London, where we'll be doing some kind of power pivot stuff. So always good to do the in-person stuff, the real deal, if you will, to meet up and learn. And then in November, we have an online session with Steve Cranack, and he'll be talking about customizing Excel, which is something that you don't hear so much. You don't get many sessions on people talking about templates and styles. So that seems interesting, and the take up on that is pretty good as well. And keep your eye out, as I say, there'll be lots of other events coming real soon. I'm trying to drop them out there rather than throw a million emails at you at once. On that note, you probably got an email last night because early bird tickets are available for the greatest Excel event in town, which is the Global Excel Summit, which is a 3-day event, 2 in person, 1 online. And will be here on the 4th to the 6th of Feb next year. So tickets are available for that now. And in the early bird tickets, there are only 350 available across all ticket types: in-person, online, masterclasses, the whole shebang. So if you miss out on those 350, the price will go up. I'm sure there'll be other discounts, but it won't be the early bird one. And on that note, you can also see for London Excel Meetup people, we have our own discount code, LEM15, which also will confirm an additional discount on top, even beyond the early bird. But also if you catch that cheeky bird, you get extra special deal just for you. Information about the summit for anyone who may not know about it. I know many people who attend this or maybe watching it on the recording attended this year or have attended previous ones. But it is a 3-day event, 2 in person, 1 online. Your ticket will guarantee all 3 days, including access to the virtual platform to engage with. If you're there in person, you'll get to literally be there in person with all the speakers and other attendees to network and share details and learn and all the good stuff. 30 sessions on the main stage, CPD hours up for grab, everything's recorded, masterclass on top. So really cool event, go check it out. There's a meetup page on the event if you want to sign up for that, if you want it on the back burner. But if you move fast, you get a big discount, don't you? Right. Anything else after that? I don't think so. No, big black screen. Which means, David, it's time for me to cue you in if you're ready, mate.
Yeah, perfect. I'll jump in and share my screen in a minute. But first, just want to do a quick introduction, kind of what I'm doing here and what we were going to do today. So my name is David Brown. I'm an associate professor of finance at the University of Arizona. I am also the founder of the Microsoft Excel Collegiate Challenge. I got my jersey on here, but it's Tucson, Arizona in the summer, so it's cold in the building and very hot outside. And then I am also just this year a Microsoft Excel MVP. So very proud of that. Got to meet Alan up in Seattle earlier this year. That's kind of where we first connected in person there. So really what we're doing today is kind of bringing Excel esports to y'all. It's an area that I'm passionate about. I think gamifying Excel makes it more accessible to students. Just it brings out the fun in it a little bit, makes it a little bit more of a competition, but also just an activity that you can think of that's not work, right? And so that's what we're going to be doing today is we have a number of these challenges that we've done for the MECC, but also in the Excel esports world. If any of you have followed the Microsoft Excel World Championship or the Financial Modeling World Cup, that's really where this style of challenge came from that we're going to be looking at today. And actually, let me go ahead and I'll share my screen so we can see what we're working on. And Alan, did everybody get access to this file?
I was just about to ask, do you want me to pop that in the chat now?
That would be fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, link for the file coming into the chat right this moment.
Perfect. And I think everybody can probably see my screen at this point, just double checking.
Yes, you can, yeah.
All right, fantastic. So the idea, Excel esports is a broad category at this point. There's, 2-hour rounds, 30-minute rounds, and then there's this new style of challenge that came out earlier this year of an obstacle challenge. And this is very much like American Ninja Warrior or similar obstacle shows where contestants usually physically move through an obstacle course, and they sometimes get progressively harder. And you see, can you get through the entire obstacle course? Or if you can, then how fast can you do it? And who can do it the fastest? And so inspired by that, we have this new series of Excel challenges that started out this year. And I developed this one as just another chance to kind of highlight skills, see how fast we can get through it, and really learn a lot. To me, the learning is the most important aspect, and my kind of Excel journey has really accelerated over the last few years because of all the Excel esports. And in a sense, that sounds silly, but Excel esports gives a way for you to approach many different types of problems you might not normally see in your day-to-day work. And find ways that, new functions, new approaches, and all that can be applied into your regular workflow. So even though this is entirely a game and just meant to be fun, I hope that you're going to take away skills that you can use to make you more efficient in work, make things just go quicker, which I think is what we're all looking for at the end of the day. All right, so that's the basic idea of what we're doing. Let's see, everybody hopefully has the file at this point. You can get it opened. There's just one tab that we're dealing with. If anybody has done any Excel esports, this is a little bit inspired by the Lana Banana case. It was a case from last year that is one of my favorite all-time Excel esports cases. If you want to check it out, I'd be happy to shoot you a link or just reach out and I can direct you to the right place to go. But what we're doing here, and I'll just scroll down so you can see, is we have this little ninja. And the idea is we're going to sequentially answer questions. So the first one here is just how many transactions are in this data set we have down below. So the data runs from transaction 1 all the way to 1462. So a good number of transactions to work with. And we have things like categories, item codes, prices, etc. So you can get familiar with the data. But the idea is as soon as you get this first question correct, it'll light up green and then it'll reveal the second question. And so what we're going to do for the next 20 minutes is everybody just take a go at this, see how far you can get through. If you can get through half of it through 10 questions, that's great. If you can get through all 20, even better. So we'll take 20 minutes to try it. And at the end of 20 minutes, we'll actually kind of loop back together and talk through it because there are going to be lots of different ways people approach things. different tricks that I want to highlight that make you go faster in this, but I'm sure you're going to have other ones, and hopefully we can share that and really just get a fun discussion going about how to get through this obstacle course. All right, does that all sound good, Alan, on your side?
Yes, all sounds good to me, mate.
All right, so I think we'll start a 20-minute timer. We don't have it showing up on the screen, so I'll give you a little updates as far as how much time is left. And then Alan and I are going to be talking up here about some other things that are going on in the Excel world. If you have questions, if you're getting stuck at somewhere, just throw it in the chat window, and we'll actually chat a little bit about, how we might solve the different questions, particularly where people are getting stuck. So our goal here is that you keep moving and trying the different challenges. So get to it. I'll set the timer. So I guess 3, 2, 1, Excel, right?
Yeah, super. Negative sequence function.
What's that, Alan?
A negative sequence function.
There you go.
3, 2, 1.
Yep.
Well, yeah, things have got to be Excel related.
The more Excel jokes, the better, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you took a go at this yesterday, right?
Yes, I did indeed.
So
Yeah, go on, mate.
yeah, what were your impressions? Have you done many of the Excel esports before?
I've done maybe 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, and you've commented a few times on the stream, right?
2, yeah. So I've commentated on 2. So going through the challenge on that, and then I've had a go at, I'm not sure how many, maybe another 2 or 3 others at some point. Never competed live, but played around with the challenges on the website or when I've done the hosting job.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for a bit of fun. And obviously did this one last night.
Did you get through 20 questions in 20 minutes?
I did all the questions, probably not 20 minutes,
Yeah.
but I certainly did them all. But yeah, I took it quite relaxed. It certainly wasn't 20 minutes. How far I would have got in 20 minutes, I'm not sure because I didn't start any timer or anything.
It's so hard to know because you put that timer on and you get that just that little bit of nerves, even though nobody's watching.
Yeah.
You get that little bit of nerves, and the function you used to know so well. You're just like, what was that sum
Yeah.
function called again?
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. And yeah, it starts off nice and easy if people don't mind me saying, and then there's a few maybe easier questions from my point of view later on, but there's a few in there that certainly make you think. And if you don't know, I mean, I don't know how people are going to solve it, but for me, I did most of it in formulas just because I love playing with formulas. May not be the quickest way, but I just thought, how can I do that in a formula?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
if you don't know the function, you're going to struggle, and if you do know it, you'll jump on it straight away. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so much, I mean, just being exposed to functions is part of the idea of these challenges, right? Like
Hmm.
you didn't know that the kind of a spoiler alert here that the large function exists.
Yeah.
I didn't know that a few years ago, and you figured that out. And it's like, oh my gosh, I used to do all this stuff with sorting and then indexing, and I don't have to do that anymore. It's amazing. And I think that's especially true over the last few years with how much stuff has come out in Excel. I mean, you've
Hmm.
been an MVP for much longer than me, so I feel like I'm at the I don't know if it's a golden age of Excel right now where stuff is just coming out so quickly, but it feels like it to me at least.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, the stuff at the moment is coming out arguably too quick. It puts a lot of pressure. Well, for people in like our position, especially like if you're an educator or something like this, it gets a bit overwhelming because you're like expected to know this stuff by people, and it's like, how am I going to learn all this stuff when you're bringing something out every week?
Right. Well, it's
Um,
there's also the timing issue, like the new regex or regex commands.
yeah,
Like a lot of people can't use them yet because you have to be on beta channel to get them. So it's a question of like, well, how much do I need to learn them to be able to teach versus when are they
yeah.
going to come out publicly?
And the honest answer is probably that you don't. It's such a niche thing, isn't it?
It is niche. I do think it's going to be extremely powerful to use in the Excel esports world once it is available to
Mm.
everyone.
Yeah.
So I haven't spent the time yet to learn regex commands, but eventually it'll be on my list. And I see we did have a question, Alan. Was there beer involved with your testing last night?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
So I noticed that if you're into the financial modeling competition side, Michael Jarman has the case that's coming out this weekend. And last year he did a beer themed case. So the question is, are we going to see another beer themed case there? And like, do you get your beer out while you're going through the case? So we'll see what people decide to do there.
Yeah, I did actually last one I hosted with him, and I can't remember what the case was that day. Um, I'll tell you what it was. It was what was it? It was something sport related. What was this? Oh, I can't remember, but I think it was a table football thing.
Oh yeah, the table football from last year, like kind of like foosball, but not exactly. It kind of like the
Yeah,
ball would roll to certain like centers of gravity.
that's it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I can't remember. Yeah,
And
which is, I mean, it's certainly interesting. Gets you, yeah, gets you thinking.
yeah, and I mean, we're not going to see this in today's case at all, but a lot of those cases, like that one in particular, has very visual elements where
Mm,
you're using Excel with the grid to actually almost like analyze pictures, so to speak.
yeah.
Uh, which in the past, I would almost think, well, that's kind of silly to do in Excel. But the more we've gone to these like large language models and things that are actually analyzing images, the more important it is that we have skills to take an image of something, put it into data that's usable, and organize formulas around that. So I
Mm,
think it's become a much more relevant skill in today's world than it would have been 5 years ago.
for sure. For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Hope, hope not too many utilizing the large language models right now. Try.
I, only using them on my end, not developing them yet. Uh, and for those that are going along with us, that's 6 minutes down, 14 to go. So hopefully you got through a few of those first couple questions.
I'm just popping the file back in the chat as well. I realize I haven't popped it in for a while. So anyone who's come in the last few minutes, the link that just went into the chat is for the file with the challenge, which hopefully will be self-explanatory when you read the paragraphs above. You know, don't rush about the time. Just have a play. We're going to talk through it afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the big thing here is we're just trying to learn some stuff from this, and it's just a fun context to, set up some learning and some lessons along the way.
Got a question?
All right. So Chris, so this is a same thing that Alan had run into yesterday, right? In testing this, that you're basically multiplying the price per unit by the units, adding that up, and that should be the total for, I think, the fourth question. And it's not unlocking it. And okay, so we're at the right point.
Was it a rounding issue, David?
So I put a rounding, so in case it was an issue, I put a rounding functionality behind it.
Mm.
So I'm wondering if there's something else that might be going on though. So
I'd
let
love
me
to know
actually,
because I feel a little stupid here.
Yeah, don't
all
worry.
right, so here's the way to get past it. So notice I just unhid row 12 on my screen. So just manually go in there and put a 1 in on that question, and it'll bump you to the next question. So we have kind of a safety release valve here.
Okay, so put a 1 in on column 12 is what you're saying.
Exactly. F12, if you want to get to the next question, just kind of override it, and that'll get you going to that next one. And that's
Yeah,
true if you miss any of these that way. I mean, you can see it's linking to a hidden sheet.
95 298 isn't the right answer.
No.
Right. 95 298 is not the right answer. So that might be throwing something off, but this way you can keep moving. And we'll see the right answer when we go through.
So put cell F12, put in a value of 1.
Exactly. And all that.
And delete the previous answer.
Well, so it won't matter whatever your answer is as long as you override that with F12.
Yeah.
And so I think this is the one you were doing, the total
So
value of
all right, so F11 equals F12.
So just set F12, just type the number 1 in F12. So right now it references back end F34.
Okay, I have a value of 1 in the cell F12.
Yeah.
And that should open up the next question for you.
And I press enter. Okay, that's question 5. Okay, question 5. Okay. What is the total value of all sale transactions? Okay, so now I need to filtered, well, I'm already filtered on sale. I guess I'm confused here. I'll not bother the audience here, but I've got a 1 at cell F12. I pressed enter and I'm on question 5. What is the total value of all sale transactions? I filtered on sale. In the table, I have a value and something isn't working on my file to unlock question 6 or 5, I should say.
You should be on question 5. If you put the answer that you're getting for the question you just said in the answer box for question 5, if it's right, it should naturally move you on.
Okay, I have 1 there, Alan. And thank you for your book, by the way. I've loved your book.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not able to move to question 5, so I don't know what.
Okay, the number 1 in cell F12 didn't turn question 4 green?
Did not turn green in cell F11.
Okay.
Interesting. Do you want to share your screen real quick? We got a second to look at that. I can unshare mine.
Sure. Pull this over.
For everybody else, we just hit under 10 minutes, so keep on working through there. And I see something on Arthur posted on question 7, so we'll try to look at that in just a second too.
Okay, so I got to find the share icon here. So I see the participants. Where's the?
Let's do some DMing in here.
Frustrating. Where is the share?
Chris, if you can't find it, it may be something to do with the settings, but I can make you a co-host just for a second, and you should be able to see the. You should be able to see.
Now I see share. Now I see share screen. Okay, perfect. Let me go over here to London Excel Meetup. Click share. Okay. Are you seeing my screen at the moment?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good deal. All right. So there's 1 in cell F12. I press enter.
Okay, and so it does have question 5 unlocked now. So it is saying question 5, what's the total value of all sale transactions? So that is the answer that you would put in G11. So now you'd have to
I
find
put
a way.
1 in cell G11.
And now you can.
Okay.
That now opened question 6 for you.
See, yeah, you're now on the question 6.
Okay.
And the answer will go.
All right, and back down to the original question, the 95,298. You know, is the formulaic value of price per unit times unit, and we're filtered on sale.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you put that number into that cell 4, you don't get, or cell 5, you don't get that answer. So it doesn't unlock you.
Okay, and on cell 4, I think you're off just a little bit because the answer should be 160,427, or at least real close to that.
How do I go back to question 4 here?
So if you delete that 1 that was in F12, that'll take you back there.
Okay. All right, so what is the total value of all sale transactions? Okay, so what I've got is I've filtered on sale and I've multiplied out the number of units here times transaction value.
Well, that's question 6, though, what you're reading out there, Chris. Question 4 is all.
Okay, how do I get to question 4?
So actually delete the 1 that is in G12. Yeah, delete that. So let's see. This is once we start playing with the files, not quite as stable, I think. So I probably have some more work to do there.
Yeah, and that's good. That's one of the things I love about what you do, Alan. This is all learning and live, and you've got good people who are actually aren't Excel idiots generally. So
it's all good,
which is good. And the greetings from Farmington, New Mexico, David. So I'm next door to you here.
Ah, fantastic.
All right. So yeah, how you reverse and go back is probably an improvement that I put in there. I see that it's trying to get me to answer because the icon moves along to number 6, but why I couldn't get an answer there, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and that's. So go ahead and put 0. So take this the formula in H12
in H12.
Yeah, H12.
All right,
And
give
then
me a
just,
second here. I'll navigate directly to that.
yeah, and then just copy that back the two previous columns.
Control C, Control V.
There you go. And also in the next column, in column G, also put it there. And then I think we have it working.
C, Control V.
Cool. And then now it's showing you question 4. So the total value of all transactions. I think you're back on track.
Okay, so the total value of all transactions, that would include purchase and sale. So change my filter there. And again, do you think, see if the rounding thing here, 164.28, control home, 64.28. Okay, that didn't allow
Okay. So link it to your answer cell then. So it's looking for the
Okay.
exact answer, or at least it's looking for
Okay.
4 digits of precision.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So
Cool.
Yep.
So
You're now on number 5.
now question 5. Okay. All right. Hey, I'll stop sharing my screen and thank you for the help, and hopefully it was helpful to you. So
Cheers,
Yeah,
Chris.
thanks for sharing, Chris. I mean, anytime my experience is if somebody's having a problem, somebody else is having the same problem. So it's always good to show that kind of thing.
I'm not afraid to admit ignorance. So
Yeah.
we're among friends, right, Alan?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. I love your book. I actually have that here now to stop sharing the screen. Share.
Thanks,
And
Chris.
Okay,
I'll pull
stop
mine
sharing.
back on.
There we go. Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I love your book, Alan. It's great reading for just a chapter or two, little snippets. So love it.
Yes. Thank you very much.
And we're just a little bit under 4 minutes left. So that's what we're looking at now. So see if you can get through a few more obstacles before we hit our time. So the first time one of these was done was, I think, earlier this spring. I think it was actually at the summit this year, right? Is that right, Taya? That at the summit they did one of these challenges and they had 4 people kind of try sequentially.
Yeah, so we've been actually having them definitely the last 2 years, maybe the last 3 years, but yeah, and we'll have another battle for the upcoming event as well during the online day. So anybody can join that for free. It's amazing watching people do that live
Yeah.
on screen.
So actually, I mean, not trying to plug myself, but my on my resume is that I actually won the inaugural Excel Global Summit like esports battle. It was the first time I did one of the battles, and they didn't put me up against Michael Jarman or Dermot Earley, and so I was able to win that one. But
Nice.
it's the
Yeah, that's
one
amazing.
battle that I've won live,
Yeah.
so that was fun.
Nice. It's difficult to think under pressure. So
It is. I really enjoyed it. I love the puzzle solving aspect combined with Excel. I just wish I had more time to train on this stuff. It's just there's so much teaching to do. I'm sure Alan can relate that, the day fills up really quickly. Not enough time to play.
Indeed, yeah.
And I agree with you guys about the fact that there's too much Excel coming out too fast to really think about in terms of earning a living doing this to digest it and apply it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where, various teachers come into play, right? If we can curate what makes the most sense, what's the most valuable for you to learn, that's where you can, as professionals, focus your effort on and, spend a few hours to learn something that's going to save you way more than a few hours going forward.
And that, not to come too far away from the challenge there, but what David just said about curating what people want to learn, there is so much nowadays that when you are trying to book courses and learning with companies, and if you've got like one day or something, it's like, well, what do I show you in a day? Like, what is it you do? What do you need? And they don't really know what they need. So then it's like, crikey, what's the best thing for me to show you to make the most impact in your day? Can be difficult when there's so much, and you don't know what they use. It's but I don't know. I guess it's good to have these different methods, but it can be difficult when you're trying to impact on people that you don't know, and So you don't really know how to benefit them the most.
And they don't know what they don't know either. So it's a chicken and an egg problem there. All right, a little under a minute left. So this is when, the student time pressure kicks up. Remember back to those collegiate days of, you got to put your pencil down in just 30 seconds. I actually, even though I love doing Excel esports, I've gotten away from doing time tests. Everything is project based in my assignment in my classes now, because in the real world, apart from Excel esports, you don't get timed on this stuff. You either stay up late or you don't. You get to get some more sleep. All right, we got 3, 2, 1. All right, there's my timer. So if you're feeling brave, go ahead and throw how many questions you got through in the chat. At this point, I just want to kind of start going through it. And as I go through, please feel free to jump in either via the chat or on the call. Speaking up is great, about different approaches you had, because I'm going to show you kind of the way I think about it and the approach I do. But I know there are lots of other good ways, and it's always fun to have a little bit of a discussion on, could we do this faster or not? So like I said, jump in. So the first thing I'm going to do in this is I'm actually not going to start answering the first question. Instead, I'm going to do a bunch of named ranges. So this is something I've learned and really grown to appreciate because of Excel esports. But when you name ranges and when you're working with your data a lot, it's going to make you a lot quicker, but also it's going to make your work more reliable. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So what I'm going to do here is what you could do, if you want to do this kind of one by one, you could select, just Control Shift down arrow, select all these transactions, and I could Alt F3 to name that range, right? That'd be one way to do this, and you could do it for each set of data we're going to do. Instead, and this is a trick I just learned this spring from a student, Alan, this is probably one you already have, but if you select all this data and we do Control Shift F3, then you bring up this Create Names from Selection menu. And so what this is going to do, it's going to create named ranges for every one of these columns of data based on what the headers are. So that's going to let me work very quickly with the data and also more intuitively. So I'm just going to have the top row selected because that's where the headers are. I say OK, and nothing really happens on the front end. We don't see anything happen. If you want to actually see what did happen, you can go into your formulas and your name manager, and you can see that we created these 7 new named ranges that we're working with. And yeah, I see in the comments, some people are using tables, which are great. I actually had students bring this up in class yesterday, and tables, because of the different style of referencing, I don't bring them up in my financial modeling class, but they're definitely a good way to go about this. So I'm not sure which would be faster at the end of the day. I guess we could do a speed test to figure out which way you could go faster, but whatever works for you is definitely great here. So first question then, how many transactions are in the data? So I'm just going to do a count of transactions, right? That's just going to auto-complete with a tab. And I got my first question. The second one, what's in cell D572? So here you could think about, just going to cell D572, copying the value and putting it up here. The slightly quicker way is the indirect function, right? So we can use indirect with a reference there, and that'll give us the YNB1. So it's the code that we had in that cell. Indirect is a function that I think is a little bit underrated. It really lets you pull data from a lot of tabs very efficiently. And I'm just trying to keep an eye on the chat here, but feel free to jump in with anything verbally too. All right, we'll get to question 7. It looks like pretty quick here. And I guess, so one thing I'll say actually about tables versus named ranges is, for me, I liked seeing the name show up a little bit more. I guess it's true either way, but I really like having named ranges just because then I can, intuit what a formula is a little bit easier with all the table referencing structure, which a lot of Excel users ultimately aren't familiar with. So might end up confusing someone else that's going to use your model later.
One thing on the instruction set at the beginning of this whole ordeal, which I missed or I didn't hear, but I was at the beginning, is the idea of putting formulas in the answer. I was doing stuff on the table and trying to copy and paste answers in, which obviously unlock things, but the goal that wasn't stated, at least I didn't hear it, is putting the formula in the answer.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Chris, and that's something I will add in. I just made a note of that, so thank you. All right, so kind of moving forward, I know 7 is going to be a question for a couple, but if we want to see how many transactions are a sale, well, let's just do a count if, and category is my named range there. And I'm just going to reference my sale transaction, and that's going to give my answer. So that's getting through those first couple. Now, on this fourth question, we get kind of we have a couple approaches that I think work here. One, you could just do a sum product between the price per unit and the units. And that's probably how I would do it if I didn't know what was coming, but I do know what's coming. So what I'm going to do is actually create a new column out here to capture the value. So I'm going to do a value, and I'm going to multiply price per unit times units. And rather than referencing the cells, this is kind of like working in a control T table. I'm just referencing those named ranges. That way I have a dynamic spilled array that's coming down off of that. And I'm actually going to name that array now value. That way it's easy for me to work with on these next couple questions. So here I can just sum a value now that I got that. And that's going to kind of set me up for this next one as well, because I'm going to sum all of the sale transactions. So we can use a sum ifs. So I want to sum value on my category and then with sale. So again, it's that function, if you look at it, is much more readable. And this is true, again, if you're using control T tables or not. But I think the main thing is that makes that function much more readable rather than having cell references in there. Because if you have cell references, then you have to, go dig into what the heck is in those cells. So ultimately, this makes your model, whatever it is, more readable by the user, which is what we need at the end of the day. So let's see. So number 4, sum product. Yeah, sum product is also a great way to do that. On question 2, why didn't you use a simple equals D572? Fair. Let's see. So I think the answer was equals D572. That works. Trying to think of a good reason not to do that. No, I think that totally works there. I think this might be a little bit because just in the Excel esports world, indirect gets used a bunch. And so if you had to do this not one time, but 100 times, the indirect function is going to be much more efficient versus having to type each of those is not going to be very efficient. So yeah, or if the cell reference is long. So I think time is a good reason there. All right, so now we have the bananas coming in once we get to question 6 here. So how many item codes have a banana in them? I'll be interested to see how other people approach this. But what I'm going to do, I'll try to spell bananas right. Try one more time. Is I'm going to look at the length, and then I'm going to use this length with a substitute. So I'm going to do the length of the item codes, and then I'm going to subtract off the length of a substitute function, where I'm going to substitute out from substitute out the banana from the, whoops, no, I'm messing this up. There we go, item codes. And I'm going to substitute out the banana and substitute in just blank quotes. All right, so getting the difference in those lengths is going to basically show me a 0 whenever there are no bananas. And then curiously, it's going to show me a 2 when there is a banana. So this is, I think, an often not known thing. I didn't know it until recently, is that many times these Unicode characters actually count as 2 characters in the length of a string. And we can actually see if we scroll down, there's 2 bananas and that shows up as 4. So it's just something I think to be aware of if you're ever doing, this text manipulation or counting these characters, because they can show up as more than one character. So to get our answer, then we can just do a count, and that's J26 hashtag. I'm just going to reference that dynamically. And sorry, not a count, but I'm going to do a count if that thing is greater than 0. So that was my approach. You get 138 there. But if you guys had other ways, let's see, substitute is better if error find. Yeah, so the find function also works. I've had trouble with either using a count if directly with a banana in there or using find with bananas. Occasionally it just errors out on me a little bit more. Alan, do you know anything about why those would be less stable with bananas?
Sorry, Matt, I was looking at the chat. What one's less stable with bananas?
Yeah, so using like a count if with the like actually just count if. Let's see, what I tried to do is I split the item code into 4 characters, like split out the characters and then count if it's a banana. And that was giving me error messages. And so I didn't know if you knew the background for that one.
Not entirely sure. I mean, count if needs a range. I'll have to see. I was a bit lost off there.
Yeah, fair enough. But I
But
guess point being is I've had trouble working with that sometimes. And so this length method with the substitute worked a little bit better for me. So in the interest of time, we'll leave that one to another day. All right, so this question 7. Oh yeah, go ahead, Alan.
no, I'm just saying I'm trying to remember when people putting their formulas up what I did last night.
Okay.
Because once you've gone through it, I don't have my questions anymore. Like I've got
Right,
some of them
exactly.
saved.
Everything's obvious once you know how to do it. All right, so this 7th question, it was a sticking point for some. So considering the bananas, how many distinct item codes are there? So that is set up for the unique function. So just an interesting side story here. Originally, this question said how many unique item codes, to which Alan told me what you really mean is distinct, which is then funny because what the unique function does is it pulls just a list of distinct items from a column. So in this case, if I do unique on item codes, well, we're going to see a spill error here, right? Because it's spilling down to the values with the dynamic array. But if I wrap that with a count A, it'll count how many distinct item codes are in the data. So I think a key here, I mean, one unique is a really valuable function to know if you don't know it already. It's just giving you all those distinct values in a set of data. And then count A, if you don't remember the distinction, count will count numbers, whereas count A will count numbers and words, or kind of anything. So count A is the more robust one. And so in this case, because we have some bananas in there, and we have letters in the item codes for that matter, we need to use count A to get that out. Yeah, and I think rows with unique also works great too. So either of those are going to be good ways to do that. So now, how many total bananas are in all the item codes in the data? So in this one, since I already used my find to get the number of characters difference, what I can do there is I can just sum J26 hashtag, and I can divide by 2 since I know that it has 2 characters for each one, and that'll give me that answer. Now, if we want distinct prices in the data, well, now we're going to use unique again on just our price per unit. So that gets us past that one. Whoops. And again, I need to count that. So a little bit of a repetitive question there, but sometimes it's good to get repetition. And now we're getting into transaction 316. So this is another reason you would have wanted to have your values broken out individually. And here what I'm going to use is just the index function. Now, the reason I thought this was important to include here is because in today's world, XLOOKUP is kind of the king of lookup functions, I think. At least that's what most of my students and I see people use the most often. But index and match still have good uses to them. And so reviewing them and knowing how index and match work separately, I think is a really valuable skill to still have. All right, Alan still says index is always king. I like that.
I'm a big index fan there.
All right. I am too. And I mean, I still use XLOOKUP for quick and dirty things, but when I set up models, I use index more than XLOOKUP. All right, so this 11th question, how many transaction values are greater than transaction value number 156? So this is just a little bit harder version of the last one, where we're going to have to use a count if with that index inside. So let's count if on the values. We have the index of value, comma, 156. And we actually have to do a greater than and concatenate that together. So this one might be a little bit unfamiliar in that this is kind of a little bit of an advanced technique in that sometimes when you're doing a condition for one of these if functions, like a count if or a sum ifs, to make them truly dynamic, you have to join the logical operator. So in this case, the greater than sign with a value, which in this case is coming from our index function. So we're using the same function we just used in the previous question. We're just nesting it inside of this and using our ampersand to concatenate those two together. And just in case that's not entirely clear what's happening in this condition, let me just copy it down here so we can see it. Is it's making what you would typically put in quotes, just the greater than 91.98. So it's building that by putting those two pieces of text together into one condition that it uses to test the COUNTIF. All right, got a number of things there. Oh, and we got some product in there. That's great. Fun to see. All right, we're moving on. I'm going to move down the data a little bit. 14th biggest transaction. So I talked about earlier the idea of using large. So large of value, comma 14. If you don't know that large exists, this is basically a corollary to max, right? Max picks the biggest item in the data, but sometimes you want the second biggest or the third biggest or the 14th biggest. So in this case, we're picking up the 14th biggest item using large. And then similarly, we have the small function. So small with value, comma 27. All right. Now I just want to revisit the kind of the where I started with the idea of I'm using these named ranges a lot here, which is saving me a ton of keyboarding time. All right. If we think about this last one, if I want to get this one, I can do it fairly efficiently with my keyboard. It's not like it takes me a ton of time individually to do that question, right? I keyboard it over there with the arrow keys and my control and shift. But when that accumulates over a day of modeling, that's a big amount of time. And the amount that you're moving in your keyboard, if you're using the same data over and over again, either through named ranges or control T tables, I definitely recommend doing that approach. All right, so now 14 and 15, here's where XLOOKUP will actually come in handy for us, is that I'm going to do an XLOOKUP, and it's going to have to be an approximate match here. So the idea is with times, and we have these here in column H in our order, date, and time, we have both a date and the time piece. So the date is going to be, the integer portion, and the time is going to be that decimal portion. So in this case, we want the first transaction on March 3rd, 2024. So if we use an exact match for this, it's not going to work, right? And actually, I didn't do my pre-work here because we need the time split out. Sorry about that. So one thing we do have to do is we have to get our time. So let's actually split out. So I'm just going to use the order, date, and time minus the integer portion of the order, date, and time. Right. And if I format that as a decimal, we can see the time piece in there. And you can actually format this so it showed you the number of hours in the day. That's not important for us to see that right now, so I won't worry about that. But now we have our time, and that's in K26. So just kind of mentally noting that. Before I do my XLOOKUP, again, on my date, I'm looking for that in my order, date, and time. And I'm returning now, like I said, K26, the value back. Now, this is where a lot of people stop with XLOOKUP, right? You're looking for an exact match, so you don't need anything else. However, here we do need the next match piece. And so that's going to be that we want the next biggest value because we're not going to exactly find March 3rd in the data. We find March 3rd plus a little bit of time within the day. So we need the exact match or the next larger item, which is option 1 there. And that'll give us that it was 1:33 in the morning is when that transaction took place. All right, so we're going to do the same thing, just with a twist here. So what time was the last transaction on April 11th, 2024? Now, on this one, we have to kind of think about how dates work. And we want the last thing that instead of being bigger than March 3rd, we want it to be smaller than not April 11th, but April 12th. Because if we want the last thing in the day, we want the thing that's a step up from that, before that. So what we're going to do then is XLOOKUP that date plus 1. We're going to look it up in order, date, and time. K26 hashtag is where we're getting the time in. And then now we're using our exact match or next smaller item to, instead of getting the first thing on April 12th, we're getting the last thing on April 11th. So just kind of a clever, different way to use the XLOOKUP, and you got to think through what day you're actually matching on. All right, we got just a couple more here. How are we doing on time, Alan?
Sorry, I'm just typing.
About 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're doing great, mate. We're not strict on time anyhow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and Alan, you said you would do a end to first search for that.
I was expecting that with the XLOOKUP, yeah.
Yeah, if that was the last day in the data, I think you could do that. But I think I intentionally picked that was not the last day in the data. And so it gets a little bit harder because of that to hit that, I think. But I'm sure you could arrange it that way. Like I said, there are so many different ways to approach these problems. All right, so the customer phone number here, or the area code. So we're going to base it off the customer phone number. And what I'm going to do is isolate the area code using a left function. So I'm going to use customer phone number, and I'm going to get 5 from that. And now this is just kind of a neat thing in Excel that you can do, right? This is text, it's in parentheses. If I want to isolate just the number now, you could strip off the first parentheses and the last parentheses. But another trick you can do is you can do a minus value function. And the minus value function, it's going to take what is text and turn it into a value. Most of you are probably familiar with that. But because there's the parentheses around it, it's going to make it a negative number. So if we want to just flip that, we put the negative out front. And now we've actually transformed that to a number a little bit more quickly that way. And that's in L26. So if we want to know how many customer phone numbers are from that area code, we can count if on L26 hashtag for 231 there. All right, we're cruising along. Now we want to know the total number value of purchase transactions for those area codes less than 200. So we get a big sum ifs of value. We got our category again and purchases. And now we got to use our area code. So L26 hashtag. And then how are we going to do it? We got to do that is greater than, less than, sorry about that, our number 200. So again, easier if we've kind of done our pre-work and set things up to use named ranges there. And I think I'm okay. Yeah, I just had a star. All right, how many transactions took place in the morning? This is a nice one to just remember kind of how times work, right? If we get 0.5 or less, that's going to be in the morning. So we can just do a count if on our K26. So those are our times. We see those kind of highlight up there. We can just do less than 0.5. We get our 711 for that. And then how many purchases took place on the weekend? So I'm very interested on if somebody has a nicer way to do that, please speak up. But what I'm going to do is just a helper column where I'm figuring out using just an if function. So I'm going to do if or, and then weekday of the order date and time, if that's equal to 1, or weekday of that is equal to 7. So if either of those things are true, I'm just going to have a 1 here. Otherwise, I'm going to do a 0. So in this one, this is one of these that doesn't always play nice with a dynamic array. There are a number of functions that are like this. So I'm just going to copy it down with the fill handle. And we can see that, it is working. Eventually, we get our weekends in here. But that's just going to kind of be my helper. And I'm going to name that whole thing weekend. And the reason I named that and I haven't been naming the other ones is that the other ones I could use them dynamically with spilled numbers, and I can kind of keep track that I'm dealing with, K26 or L26. I could do that in my head. But this one I cannot do as well. So that's why I named it. So I'm going to count if category with purchases. And then I want weekend to be equal to 1. Whoop, and I did count if instead of count ifs, just a quick fix there, and we get through that one. All right. And then we got just a couple left here, so I'm just keeping an eye on the chat. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do is the last digit here with a couple. So we're just going to extract the rightmost digit of the customer phone number. We got that. And then I'm just going to do a data table real quick.
You gotta love that.
All right, so this is one that I don't know how much people use, but the idea is that I'm going to set up a count if on that range that I just had based on some input cell. So if you haven't used data tables, and this is where like the naming of control T tables and data tables becomes a little bit tricky, is that a data table is basically a way of running a scenario analysis. So here I'm just going to run a scenario analysis where I run 0 through 9 through the model I just built. Whoop. It actually reference my input cell and get my answers out there. So I can see that for number 4, that is the 159 is going to be our maximum. So in the interest of time, I know we're hitting up at the end, so I'm just going to put 159 there. Whoops, I was actually supposed to put the 4 that's associated with that one. All right, so one last one, and we'll be just about ready to wrap up. Is how many bananas? Sorry, Lana wants to replace all the zeros in the phone numbers with bananas. So what's an easy way to do this? So to me, the easiest way is just copy this data, come over here. I'm just going to paste values and just go up into my Control H menu. So Control H is find and replace. So if I want to find zeros and replace them with bananas, let me find a banana here. I can say replace all. Of course, I got into a function accidentally here. Let me come back over, Control H, replace all. So it tells me right here when I do that, that I just replaced 1,039 replacements. So it gives me my number without having to do any formulas. And we can type in 1,039 and we have our answer. Whoops. And I don't know what happened there, but I just screwed up a bunch of stuff with some of my other questions.
Yeah, it's the bananas, I think. Do we remove bananas from the original column or something?
I think I copied the data that way I wouldn't mess anything up, I guess.
What happened?
So where we screw things up is always interesting, right? So what happened is I replaced bananas in the entire spreadsheet.
I see bananas. Yeah.
There we go. All right, I got that back. So that you got to be careful with that because I did replace bananas in the entire spreadsheet, and that's what threw that off in the first one. So got to watch it. Or yeah, exactly. It happens to all of us. All right, so that was a run through. I've actually got a video that I've recorded on this as well. So Alan, if you want to post that in the chat, I can send you a link to that. That way it's kind of a walkthrough video of me going through this step by step, or you can rewatch this recording. I'm sure I did it slightly different in that recording, just since every way is just a little bit, every time's a little bit different. But that gives you an idea of what we're doing here. And I hope you had a good time with it. I think as parting words, this is us trying to gamify Excel to get, younger students involved, engaged, learning data analytic techniques. That's what the MECC is all about. And I actually do have an ask of everybody that's kind of in the audience today. And that is that we're trying to get a little bit more of a presence in London. We're doing regional competitions this coming spring throughout the world. So we have a number of sites in the US, we're doing one in Sydney, and we're trying to hit some of these bigger centers as ways to get students engaged. So if you are interested in being either a sponsor and trying to maybe bring students to your headquarters or working with one of the local regional schools, I'd love to talk to you about that. Or if you just want to support students. I know Alan's been interested in reaching out and mentoring some students. If you're interested in doing the same, fantastic. The MECC will try to make those connections, again, to get a little bit more of a London group going. The other way that you can help if you're interested, and I think Alan's going to drop the link to a GoFundMe that we have. Yeah, you just put that in the link. We've done a GoFundMe campaign. We're trying to raise money to get students, particularly from developing countries, to the MECC finals in Las Vegas this year. It is the second coolest Excel event of the year. I'm only saying that because of the audience here. But it's a 3-day event in December where there's kind of Excel training in the morning and then Excel competition in the evening. So you get a balance of both of them. It's where the world championships for the pros will be, as well as the college students. And we're trying to bring in students from all over the world to do that. We have budget to fly in about 20, and we're just trying to expand our budget through this GoFundMe, particularly for students, for women, and for students from developing countries. So if you can contribute or pass it to your social network, that way more people see it. I think there are a lot of professionals out there that understand the importance of Excel and want to support students who are trying to do the same and develop their own skill sets to improve their own futures. So thank you all very much. Like I said, please feel free to reach out. I guess I'll throw my email in the chat there just right now, dcbrown@arizona.edu. And yeah, please feel free to reach out. I think that's all my messaging for today. So Alan, let me pass it back to you.
Thanks, David. You hanging around for a bit?
For just a minute or two, just because I had students knock at my door just a second ago.
Alrighty, okay. Yeah, we'll keep it short then. I can always chat to people when you're off. But yeah, thanks a lot for your time. And for the challenge. I hope people enjoyed that, and there will be people watching the recording, and I'll share this on social media, I guess, see if we can get some people taking up the challenge and aware of it as well. I'll put links to the GoFundMe and stuff in the YouTube description
Fantastic.
to help as well. Yeah, I'll chat to you outside of this on a couple of things, but yeah, any passing notes to leave anybody?
I
Yeah,
just
I'm
want
glad
to
you
say
guys enjoyed it.
I love this format, and I think if we had a couple of tracks that are less advanced would be good. I'd love to show this to my local community college.
Hey, so Chris, so I'm so glad you brought that up. If you go to the mecc.college, you can sign up. So we have signups for, college students, high school students, but also anybody else that wants to try them out. And we just put out a very similar style of challenge, but much simpler. This is
Okay.
more of a professional level geared one
Yeah.
that I showed you today. That one is introductory, meant for, high school clubs, college clubs to get people just started in this. So
Well,
that'd be an excellent one to pass on.
the other market I think we need to be tackling is the Center for Workforce Development market for professional development. And again, having that as a lower level. I mean, I've got a lot of folks that have associate's degrees that would benefit from starting with something much simpler and gamifying. And all of a sudden that takes away the lecture and press F7, I mean, all the boring stuff we've all been through. Yeah.
Yeah, you're hitting the mission of the MECC on the head. That's what we're trying to do. If you don't mind sending me an email, let's connect. And I mean, we're neighbors, so let's talk a little bit more about getting students involved.
Will do, David. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers, Chris.
All right, the students are going to knock my door down, so I should run.
No worries. Take care,
Thank
mate.
you,
Thanks a
David.
lot.
Thank you all very much. Love to chat with anybody else further.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Yeah.
All right, team. So obviously had to rush, calling in from the States there. He's got more work to do this afternoon. If anybody wants to chat more about the challenge net, feel free. So I've done it myself, so don't know it as well as David to pass questions, but can hopefully help a bit. I know I was throwing some of my crazy formulas at the end into the chat that I'd kept. I didn't keep all of them, unfortunately, but I tackled like 90% of the questions with a sum function. So I wasn't necessarily taking it hugely seriously. I had to resort to a control F for one or two, but most of it was done with a formula without any helper columns. Not the quickest way, but I was just trying to have fun. So you can see a lot of my sum functions running in there. I will make this file, I'd say, available in the description for anybody who didn't want to do it live, or if you've come in late and stuff. So it will be available to people outside of this, and this recording will also be available. If anybody, if David went a little bit fast there, then obviously you can always watch back the recording to catch it again and maybe slow him down and write the formula live. Cool. Any comments, team?
Alan, I'd love to see the group have this kind of exercise fairly regularly. I think it'll grow your group quite a bit, particularly if you have different tiers. I mean, you're good about stratifying the complexity of what you have. Your own book does a good job on that as well. And having a library of those trainings with the downloadable files, I think will really get you a lot of traction. And another person I would connect you up with, and well, is David Ringstrom, who does some gamifying and education there. I use David as a VBA consultant on projects I use. And I think the two of you guys connected with David Brown would really make a great gift to the Excel community.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. How did you know I knew David Ringstrom so well?
That's how I found you, actually.
All right, there you go. Yeah, take off for the cut of his books.
When you're out in the sticks, you get help wherever you can find it.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and it's, sometimes it's just finding these people. There's some real gems who aren't necessarily big on kind of social media and stuff like David, but when you stumble across them, their material is high quality.
Yep.
if you've got time for social media, your Excel skills probably aren't so high.
Point. I do wish we could have skipped some questions so we could have tried some more than just getting stuck and having to sit there.
Yes. Yeah. How did you do, Erin?
I only got to question 6. I missed. I've never had to deal with icon codes before, and so if I could have skipped that one, I would have liked to have tried other ones. And that codes, the symbols don't come up in my work in modeling, so it was not useful. And then I couldn't try other questions.
For sure, yeah, they don't come up in much. I'll tell you what, in the esports stuff, they do icons quite a bit, but yeah, it's not massively practical in the real world. Not the icons itself, maybe some of the formulas around it. Yeah, we could have mentioned that at the start. He was saying at some point about how we can skip questions, but it was kind of happening once the challenge got underway. So I think a lot of people would have missed that.
I think that whole review, Alan, of the rules up front, I think could have been perfected better in terms of feedback. Just literally putting formulas in the answers. I mean, was something that was like, I'm trying to work down below that and then copy and paste. And
I did that. Yeah.
It wasn't intuitive in that regard.
And I took my earbuds out when I started working because listening to you guys talk was distracting when I was trying to think.
No worries. Yeah, thanks for the feedback, team. If we do some of these again, then we'll try and take it on board. And even if we don't do it live, hopefully we can get some kind of community. In the Microsoft world, things like hackathons are a real popular thing. We can maybe see if we can get some kind of Excel version of that. We don't want to tread on David's toes too much in the esports world and that. But yeah, bit of challenges keeps it need an excuse to practice, maybe a bit more fun way away from our business stuff.
Speaking of business, back to business. So I'll catch you next time, Alan. Okay.
Yeah. Cheers, Chris.
Right. Cheers.
Thanks for your time, buddy.
Thanks, Chris. Bye.
All right, team. Not sure what else to add. If anybody's got any questions or feedback or thoughts, feel free. I might close the YouTube stream soon, and then we can always chat a bit more casually if anybody wants to do that. But if there's any more comments on the actual challenge and what we did today, then please take this opportunity. Maybe look at closing down this YouTube stream now then. Thanks for everybody on YouTube. I'm going to shoot that down now. The recording will be available if you missed anything live. See you soon. So that is down. That just leaves us here. As I say, if there's anything you want to talk about, feel free.